Welcome once again to Beyond the Process. I'm your host, Shane Patrick White, and joining me as always is my co-host and Italian correspondent, Lance Laspina.
Che cosa fai, Shane? Huh? Che cosa fai?
Prego, whatever. I don't know.
Welcome. Benvenuti da Italia. Welcome from Italy.
Wow. So,
Yeah.
why are you in Italy like right now?
Yeah. Good question. So, my wife and I actually.
Take me with you. I mean,
Yeah, I know. That's the thing. I know. Next year, you and your spouse are coming. Yes, you and your spouse are definitely coming to visit us for sure.
okay.
So my wife and I started coming here in 2007 and fell in love with it. I have an Italian heritage. My grandfather was born in Sicily, so I kind of immediately felt at home right away. And we started coming back. I think we waited 3 years the first time, and then it shortened to 2 years, and then 1 year, and then we started coming at least once a year. And then 2016, we decided to start actually looking for a place to buy over here.
Amazing.
And we originally thought we'd do Umbria because it's a little bit less expensive than Tuscany is.
Right.
But right before, within say 3 months before our departure, there was a huge earthquake in the area of Umbria that we were looking to buy.
Wow.
And so then I did a little more research and found out it's a highly seismic zone.
Oh boy.
So we decided to try and switch and on the fly and start looking in Tuscany, even though we didn't think we could afford Tuscany. But once we did more research, we realized the prices weren't that much higher than they were in Umbria. So we did a trip in the fall of 2016. I think we saw like 27 places or something crazy like that. We started in southern Tuscany and drove slowly north, just looking at places everywhere. And we ended up here, which is the town is called, the actual village is called Montefioralle, as you can see on my hat. But
yes.
the larger town in the area is known as Greve in Chianti, and it's where, if you ever heard of the word Chianti, as it refers to wine, this is where it comes from.
Okay.
It's kind of like, it's like Bordeaux in France or Champagne in France as well.
Right.
It's named, the wine is kind of named after the region. And so there are a lot of laws stating that you can't call anything Chianti unless it comes from this small area of Tuscany, which is kind of it's pretty cool. So the village that we're in is it's like, as I mentioned, it's called Montefioralle. It's very small. There are less than 100 inhabitants here, and this was I think this was like either the last or next to last place that we looked on our trip. And so we got back to California and started making offers on it and dealing with the real estate agent and the prior owners. Went back and forth several times, and then we finally came to an agreement. And
nice.
So 2017 is when we purchased it. And
but isn't there more to the story though? Wasn't there? Weren't you on TV?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I forgot about that. So my wife and I we did a part on House Hunters International. It was one of the episodes in Chianti, and I think it was called "Living the Chianti Way of Life," I believe, something like that. The title, and so if anyone, I hate to ruin it for anyone who doesn't already know, but any of the House Hunter episodes, be it domestic or international, they're all fake. The person has already purchased the property prior to doing the show. And so the actual places that we saw, of course we saw this place. This is the first place that we looked on the show. And then we did 2 others, and those 2 others were actually Airbnbs. So they weren't even really for sale. They just make it up. They kind of come up with a price. The real estate agent was a real estate agent that was like the host, essentially, that led us through Tuscany. But so that was, I think it aired I think we shot it in 2017. It aired in 2018. And it's really hard to find. For whatever reason, HGTV doesn't
They just
put
bury
all of
everything.
they bury everything. They don't put their episodes up on like, I mean, they do, it is on this, they do have certain episodes up on their streaming platforms, but not everything is available. Maybe because there are just too many. I don't know. So
Or
yeah,
maybe you weren't that entertaining, you know?
that's probably closer to
Maybe you weren't so like, oh my God,
yeah, I
it
know,
comes with a
exactly.
toilet.
Right. Yeah. Oh gosh, if you would have seen this place before we fixed it up though, and
Yeah.
it's all on this full display in the show, you could see, what a mess this place was before we fixed it up. So, and it's, we're still doing little things here and there. I mean, we kind of finished with the largest parts just this spring. We did the bathroom I think in 2019, and then we did the kitchen in 2020, right as the pandemic was hitting. So
Right.
I was here overseeing the work in February of 2020. So, and I barely was able to get out before everything shut down here. And of course, we all know that Italy was one of the hot spots of the pandemic at first. So,
yeah.
That's
wow. That's incredible. I'm glad you made it. Otherwise, you would have been stuck in, I don't know, paradise. Whoops. Sorry, honey. I couldn't make the flight.
Exactly. I've been stuck here for 2.5 years or so. It wouldn't have been all too bad. But.
I'm going through that library of Chianti we found in the basement.
Oh yeah, that's another thing. Yeah, we had so the place came with 800 bottles of Chianti wine that the prior owners left us, and it's all from like the late 60s and the 70s.
Oh, good year.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, back then the Chianti wasn't actually manufactured, wasn't produced to age like it is today.
Right.
So the wine back then certainly is, it's gone bad. We've had some people try it and they're like, nah, unfortunately, not good anymore, which is what we expected.
Right.
But so I'm actually slowly selling it off to people though who don't care, like they don't want to drink the wine, they just want it as like for the collection.
So my grandmother, like the only reason why I know about Chianti is my grandmother on my mom's side used to have this corn husk wine. That's what I called it, corn husk wine, because it had the corn husk on the bottom.
Yeah,
and it always reminded me.
Fiasco.
Okay, well,
the actual bottle's called a Fiasco. Yeah.
Well, I didn't know if that was legit or if that was like made in Iowa, It's like, we got corn. Let's use it.
Well, back in the day, it was considered like a very cheap product, like table wine sort of thing that the poor would drink. But
bohemian,
exactly, yeah. Things have changed though.
Wow. So you have 800 bottles of wine. Do you have room for an art studio at all?
No, unfortunately. I mean, I probably could make something if I had to. We only have 2 bedrooms, master and a guest, and then we do have a downstairs that we haven't done a whole lot with yet, because that's where you walk in. You walk into the downstairs. We have a couch. We just bought a light, and we're getting a console to put on against the wall, just to make it a little bit more homey, like a place to go down and read. We don't have a TV in the place at all. We just use my iPad if we ever want to watch anything. And then you come upstairs for the main part of the house. I'm standing in the kitchen right now. So the rock that you see behind me is actually the original rock. So our place was attached to what's called they call it Montefioralle, the castle, because it had a fortress wall around it. It was actually, so it's located halfway between Florence and Siena. So Florence here, Siena to the south. And so it was a very strategic position, and a lot of people would take over this little village and use it as a fort for battle. So it does have like these main fortress walls, and our place was attached in like the 1800s to the wall itself. So when we bought the place, everything was covered. The prior owners had covered the beams, they had covered the rock wall. It was, I don't know, I don't understand why. And it was in the 80s when they redid it, and maybe I think for whatever reason, like they didn't want the place they wanted it to look more modern and less like historic, which is kind of crazy. But anyway, so we've kind of done both. We've made it like we have touches of modernity, I guess. I don't know if that's the word.
Yeah,
And then we have, we've kept a lot of the historical pieces as well. So yeah, this is actually like part of the castle wall, which is
that's
kind of
pretty
crazy to
cool.
think of. Yeah,
It's interesting. Like I can maybe see the reasoning for the '80s wanting to cover up that historical rock
yeah.
because the '70s was loaded with a lot of themed restaurants.
Oh,
So,
I thought you were gonna go like in the classic rock or something like that.
oh
That's where
no,
my mind was going. Okay, good. Okay, it was loaded with themed restaurant. Yeah,
a lot of themed
yeah,
restaurants, like
yeah,
under Atlantis, and so you'd have an
yeah.
Atlantis themed restaurant or the wagon wheel country
True.
buffet.
Right, right.
Um, so I can see why people would be like, okay,
Yeah,
let's just cover this up with Patrick Nagel
yeah.
art and some neon lighting and
Yeah, yeah, it was really bad, really bad. I have old photographs of it, and like I said, also in the show, you can see it. We do a full tour of the house. So
right,
yeah,
right,
and if somehow that someone could find that. But yeah, we've fortunately we've turned the place around. It's not a big place, but it's very comfortable for us whenever we come here.
yeah. Well,
So
good,
yeah,
good.
so yeah, that's why I'm here. So we come. I should have mentioned we come twice a year. We come in the spring, then we come in the fall. So next year we'll do the same thing.
For planting season and for harvesting season. So
Exactly. Yes.
that's
Yes.
and
That's
and
right.
that's the way you do it, kids. If you want to be a migrant worker, buy a place, get a passport, do it right, and then you can work in the country of choice.
That's right. That's right.
That's pretty cool.
So do we have? Let's see. Who
We do.
who's watching? We don't have any comments yet, do we?
No, but that's okay
Okay.
because I
Okay.
could talk your ear off all day
Yeah.
long. But we did have some questions that we threw out to people and we
Sure.
did a poll. And
Yeah.
the top question that came up was about landing that first gig and how to stay
Right.
employed. And
Yeah.
there's so many angles you can come at that with, whether it's freelance or a full-time gig
Hmm.
or just like well, I guess it'd still be freelance, but like if you're like trying to get
Hmm.
on a show, something more
Mm.
specific,
Sure.
it's kind of like a
Sure.
contract job where it's just like,
Right. Right.
hey,
You're not actually considered an employee with full benefits and everything, but
right,
you're
right.
you're going into the office every day just like all the other employees. Yep.
Or
Yeah.
you're on a contract that's longer than a couple of weeks.
Oh,
So like an entire
sure.
show, like
I see what you're
film,
saying. Yeah.
several months,
Right.
working on Star Wars or any of these
Hmm.
IPs that take have a lot of pre-production and development time. So
Sure. That's true. Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of like, if we're talking, the world of animation, I think a lot of those people go in to work at a
yeah,
studio. Whereas if we're talking about live action, I don't think it's always that necessary to go in. I think it used to be. They used to have people come in, but these days it seems like a lot of guys are working from home
right,
and just posting their work, like I do for most of my commercial work. So and
right.
then same thing with you. You do the same thing.
Yeah. Well,
So,
when
but
we had
yeah.
that interview with the storyboard artist Gabriel Hardman, and
Hmm.
he would be on a project for the entire run. Like even though he was doing storyboard,
Yeah.
they would keep him on. So
Right.
that was, I mean, it's unique. It can be unique for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
True. Yeah, which it surprised me because and he also said that he's usually the only one on these jobs, and I always
yeah,
thought for live action that they'd have several, but I think it depends on the director and how they work, and
right,
probably how much time. If they're in a time crunch, they've got to bring on more people. But if they have a lot of time ahead, they do long pre-production run. Then it can just be one guy working directly with the director. So
right.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
At least there'd be like a main person or somebody who can sort of lead the charge and how to get that job started. And if you bring in other
mhm.
people, then it's just like you can sort of help them get on board quicker. And that
Right.
way
Yeah.
you're like a liaison to the director in some cases, just to
Yeah, absolutely.
move things
Absolutely.
along.
Yeah. Yeah, because sometimes they'll manage other artists, sort
Yeah.
of, they're kind of not working under them so much, but they'll help them out with certain scenes and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So,
So
so we go
go
ahead.
ahead. I was just gonna say, like before you started working freelance,
Yeah.
you had worked at a couple places full time, right? And did did you find that they were the same or different
Yeah.
in terms of like how you got those jobs?
Huh. Well, I kind of went back. Yeah, I went back and forth quite a bit. And I also worked a lot for free, which I don't
Well,
necessarily recommend. In this industry, I
yeah,
think a lot of people get taken advantage of because people are so desperate to get their break, and then so they'll be willing to do anything.
right,
And I was one of those people when I was young. I'm not sure how much it goes on today, to be honest. That was that was
right,
more than what 30 that was 30 years ago.
right,
So I'm sure it still happens, of course, because people are always looking to get people to work for free, and
sure,
people are always going to take advantage of other people. So like I said, I'm sure it happens, but I just don't know to what degree. But I mean, you can get experience doing that, like especially if you don't have a portfolio already established. Like if I guess if you're not disciplined, maybe I don't know if that's too harsh of a word,
mm,
but if you need something else to motivate you to do the work instead of trying to come up with it yourself,
mm,
then maybe it's a good idea to go work for someone, even if it's for free, because they're giving you, they're feeding you, what they need with ideas and that sort of thing, and you're going to produce. You have to meet a deadline. It kind of gets you prepared for when you do go work in the real world. So I'm
mm,
not saying it's all bad. It's just I just don't like the concept of working for free and
right.
working for nothing. So
I'm
how do
more.
you feel about that?
I mean, I'm more likely to do it for friends. That's kind
Sure.
of like my upper limit these days.
Hmm. Yeah.
I'm looking at it as, is the project really going to be enjoyable? Am I really helping out my friend? Like, I love seeing my friends succeed. So if it's just a little bit of a shove, then
Hmm.
I'm there to help. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think the younger generations are getting a better sense of their value, and it's when across the board everyone's kind of thinking the same thing, then
Hmm.
it's that's where change happens. There was a
Yeah.
period when I was like, I wouldn't hand over my original artwork, and I'm like, why?
Hmm. Yeah.
Because everything's digital, or I can scan
Yeah.
in something and then now it's a digital piece. I'm not mailing it to
Mhm.
you. There's no reason
Sure.
to own it. And
Right.
that's a separate price. And so by taking that stand, eventually those ideas that companies had to own all the artwork
Yeah.
changed. It was more important
Sure.
to own the copyright and the IP. So
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, in my case, I never sent in my original work either, but they were just
right,
storyboards. They weren't like elaborate illustrations, which
right,
I also would have refused to send in. But yeah, mine were just sketches. But still, it's like to me, they're like my first storyboards, and
right.
I don't know. It's kind of I have like a soft spot for when I go back and look at that work, because it
Wow.
reminds me of like just getting started and like what I went through and what I had to do to finally break in. So
The first
yeah.
storyboards I did was the stuff that I did on Black Dahlia with for the shoot that you were
Mm,
doing,
yeah,
that
yeah,
you directed. So that was kind of
yeah,
like a weird little segue into the business. Like I hadn't
yeah.
done storyboards before that, and then I don't remember the next storyboard gig I ended up doing until maybe
Oh,
in Seattle, when I moved to Seattle. So it was just like,
wow.
um, yeah, I didn't do it at the video game at Boss Game Studios or anything like that. I had just ended up, I don't know,
Hmm.
someone just sort of contacted me and said, "Hey, do you want to do
Yeah,
storyboards?"
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Well, I mean, yeah, you were always doing comic book work, and of course,
yeah,
comic book. When people see comic book art and then they see storyboards, they think they're the same thing, and
yeah,
and to a certain extent, they can be. I'm not saying they're completely different because they're not.
yeah,
It does take a different mindset and different talent, sort of thing, and a knowledge of film, obviously, to do storyboards. But it is much obviously easier for someone who's good at drawing comic books to I think to go switch into doing storyboards than probably vice versa. I think
sure,
it's harder for a storyboard artist to try and do comic book work.
exactly.
So
Do
yeah.
you think the proximity to the industry has a lot to do with A, getting work, and then B, staying
Hmm.
employed?
I know it. absolutely used to. I think it's to a lesser degree today because a lot of the jobs you see like listed on LinkedIn, a lot of them say remote. And I think, the pandemic played a big part in that because people just became used to working remote, used to using Zoom for meetings and that sort of thing. Whereas, prior to that, I was always pushing for video calls. And like we had the technology, 10, 12 years ago. It's like, I don't understand why we weren't using it back then. So I think, like I said before, I think like for animation, I think, it kind of requires everyone to be in a room together. I can't imagine like a huge Zoom call with all these people discussing everything. I just think it's easier. And then this way, you can get up and walk down the aisle and talk to someone, who's doing maybe working on the same scene as you and be on the same page without like that delay of working remotely and waiting for someone to respond and all that. So I think, I think as a group, when you're all working together on something, I think it makes more sense that you have to be at the place where they're producing it. Whereas again, if it's live action and you're the only storyboard artist, it doesn't make sense really, because you're just pretty much dealing with the director, and it's easy then to communicate with one person back and forth.
There's a synergy that I think is going to be lost for a generation that ends up doing mostly remote work. And
I agree.
The energy and the body language is really important when you're having a meeting or in the room. You can see if someone's doing jazz hands to sort of get their point across, or you can actually see if someone is not listening or not involved or feels like they're checked out. And you want to find a way to rope them back in, and you can't really get that through Zoom. It's true.
It's true. No, I totally agree. Plus, just the camaraderie and the relationships you build. Like you and I would never have remained friends, I doubt, if we started working remotely together instead of in person all those years ago.
Yeah, I don't like anything you have to say in most cases, but because I know you.
Yeah, perfect example. Yeah,
because I've seen you naked.
Oh boy, are we going there now?
Well, if you
I mean,
want to.
Is this a PG or an R-rated show?
Let me upgrade real quick.
Yeah.
Speaking of upgrade, I'm going to share my screen so I can do some art. I think I'm going to ink this Jack Kirby page. It's a Conan piece.
Oh, cool.
Have you seen this before?
No. I didn't know Jack Kirby ever drew Conan.
I didn't either until I don't know. I went looking, and it's like, holy cow, this is amazing. Like, I'm very picky about who draws Conan. But I think this is this gets a pass. This is totally on point.
Wow, that is super cool. That's super cool. Kirby has such a geometric feel to his drawings. I don't. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, they're almost like designs, and they're a combination of a drawing and a design at the same time. Wow, that is really cool. And are those his actual blue lines, or you turned it blue?
Well, yeah. Let me show you the original.
Oh, okay. But so are those pencils? Those are pencils.
Those are pencils. And
wow,
he didn't always pencil this tight. This was from 1979, so this might have been around the time he was doing the Eternals.
Okay.
And I thought that was a pretty good era for him. It was really strong work. There's some different stuff going on here in the legs that I hadn't really ever seen before. Usually it's like a squiggle. So yeah. So I don't know. It's kind of interesting. The only time I inked Kirby was that Fantastic Four piece that I did.
Yep.
So.
So
yeah.
So you can talk while you're drawing. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we were, I guess the question that we were talking about is, how to land your first freelance gig and then how to maintain getting work. Because it's not so easy, especially these days. It's not so easy, and I actually feel rather sorry for someone who's just graduating school, and just starting out in the industry. I think it's going to be hard to get a foothold. It was not that it was easy when we were young, but I think it was a little bit easier to get that first job. We weren't competing against so many, much technology and
The world.
the world. Yeah, exactly. The entire world. That's true. Today you are competing against the world because people work remotely. So you could be competing against, people from
Southeast
other countries.
Asia. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Who charge much less as well. So yeah, and then of course there's artificial intelligence, which everyone's dealing with.
Yes.
So it's another threat. So it's hard. I mean, to give advice to someone today is completely different than how I would have given advice to them when I was, starting out.
But wouldn't you say there are some things that still hold true, such as creating strong networks in those schools and just being a really solid person?
Absolutely, because that's primarily where a lot of people end up getting work, is from the relationships. Yeah, it's not, beating the pavement or pounding the pavement. I guess the saying is pounding the pavement, and then trying to impress someone new who you've never met before. That's really hard to do.
Yeah,
it's those prior relationships that come back constantly, and this client work too. Like, so once you start establishing a base of like a network, like you called it, not only of friends who are doing the same thing you are, because that's happened to me. Like, a friend might get a job working on a project, and then they need more people, and so who do the hiring people ask?
Right.
They ask the people who are working on the job, like, do you know anyone good who you could recommend to us? They don't just go, it's too much time for them to go start from scratch and start going through resumes and looking at portfolios and all that stuff. They want to find someone quickly. So they ask the people who are already working, like, do you have recommendations? And so it's those people who, they pull you in and they give you a call and they're like, look, we need some guys working on the show right away. So that's how a lot of people end up getting their work these days, I think, is those strong relationships that you mentioned. To start from scratch is hard. I mean, obviously at some point you kind of have to, but I think if you went to art school, you're already building those relationships. Unfortunately, like for me, like I went to film school, I didn't go to art school, and I relied too heavily, thinking that not my friends, but I was relying too heavily on the school itself and the faculty to help land me a job, and that never happened.
Right.
So
despite what they advertise.
Exactly. Yeah. Despite what they advertise. So I would not rely on that. I mean, it could have just been the school and the time period I was going, but I wouldn't roll my eggs in that one basket for sure.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, there's been a few times, later on in my career when I've gotten referrals from people I've never met. Like somehow they found me through somebody else because they had heard about me or I did a good job, and that's been amazing, and that's out of your control. So there are some things that you have to figure out, how do I take control? And one of those ways, I think, is to actually do trade shows or industry events that get people together. Have you ever done those before?
No.
Like Graph or
No. I'm thinking, I was going to ask you if you want to go to Lightbox next year, though. I was thinking about doing. I mean, I used to go to SIGGRAPH. As an attendee, but are you talking about as an attendee or as a presenter, like, or a person that has a booth?
As an attendee, because at the time I didn't really have a lot to offer.
Okay, I see.
I didn't know the landscape enough.
Yeah. No, I definitely used to go to those events, and I would try and network as best I could. I didn't really know what I was doing, to be honest. I don't know if anyone really knows what they're doing if you're trying to network. You're just trying to be friendly and
I mean, at the time, there wasn't as much information available on how to network, on how to do what we were doing, and now that there's a plethora of it, there should be no problem, in figuring it out.
Not advertising for Lightbox because I have no affiliation with them, but I know that's coming up this weekend. Or
that's right.
Is it the next? It's the next weekend. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's coming up
Right?
very
It's like
soon.
the 25th, 26th, 27th, something like that.
Yeah,
So, but yeah, that one show really interests me more now than most of the
yeah,
others, to be honest. For the type of work that we do.
yeah. So it sounded like you were thinking about going next year, perhaps.
Yeah, I'm thinking. Yeah, I'm thinking maybe we should go next year, either as attendees or maybe set up a booth
Oh, that'd be interesting.
and do a show live from Lightbox. I think that'd be
Oh,
pretty
that'd be
cool.
fun.
We could interview. I mean, all the artists will already be there.
Oh,
We
that'd
could either
be.
go around and do that, or have them come to our booth and do it. But I
Hmm.
think that'd be a blast.
I know one of the show organizers, so maybe
Yeah,
I could
there you go.
ping him and see what
Yeah, pull some
how he can
strings.
help. What's
Yeah,
that?
pull some strings.
Let's see. We'll see. And if I have to, I'll call him in the Italian job.
That's right. Hey, forget about it.
See, you went there. When I
I
do
know.
it, I'm the
I
bad
know.
guy.
Exactly.
Yeah. But you know what's interesting when it comes
Yeah.
to like comic books,
Hmm.
back in the day, and I've said this ad nauseum, the comic book editors used to create relationships with artists. They would discover talent at shows, and then they would cultivate that talent. And then once they had their person, they kept them on staff in a way where it was just like, hey, do you have anything going on? Here's a
Hmm.
series. Do you want to do that? And then it's just like in between jobs, they would just give them filler gigs, and that would help them pay rent or whatever, and
Sure.
also give them a chance to, if a book was late, they could have an issue that they could put out in between,
Hmm.
a saga or whatever. But
Right.
these days, I hear through the grapevine that a lot of people end up getting work through social media, and
Hmm.
that's distressing to me because it's like,
Hmm.
well, there is a generation who have been doing it long enough where they actually are known to other people like myself.
Hmm.
There are younger people who are even more talented who have, a lot of followers, and it seems like they're getting work as comic book artists or cover artists or illustrators. But I don't know. I don't know if the cultivation of talent is something as noticeable or prevalent these days with editors.
Yeah.
Wish I had more
Yeah.
information on that.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's to me, it's just an interesting way to find talent,
Right.
just through social media, as opposed to, I don't know, getting to know the person a little bit better. Learn more about them, talk to them.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
but it definitely happens.
what's interesting is there's a lot of Italian comic book artists who are doing American books.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for those immigrants taking our jobs, but they're so skilled,
Oh,
and that's what
yeah.
kills
No, they
me.
are. Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
the amount of work they put into it is, I'm like, no American would do that.
Yeah.
As much as they love
Yeah.
comics, they're not going to put in that kind of work.
Right. Yeah. There's something to it, I think. Yeah. I think.
Yeah.
I think they've had to work for everything their entire lives, and so they're pretty accustomed to working hard to achieve, whatever goal that they set for themselves.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. I think Americans gotten a little bit out of touch with working
yeah.
like that.
Yeah. The work ethic. Yeah. Yeah. So it's no secret that, if you're an artist or comic book artist, either work for hire or on staff, that unless you have your own IP, you really don't make that much money.
Right.
So did that ever deter you from doing it? Or is it just like your love of doing comics was so great that you didn't care, like you do it for free?
Well, it's interesting. I think initially when you start out, I think wanting to do the work and getting published, and by getting published, you get noticed. And that was kind of before social media was the thing. So you would do the work for free. So I've done a lot of free stories. I've worked on Fear Agent with Rick
Right.
Remender. Actually, I think I wrote that story too. He let me do a backup story in Fear Agent.
Okay.
I did a backup story in another book called Hawaiian Dick with a writer who played Moore, and then we ended up collaborating on a graphic novel called Endless Summer years later. So
That's right. Yeah.
So that worked out because like that ended up being a paying gig, and because we had a good relationship prior to that, that helped out immensely.
Okay. Okay, so it kind of goes back a little bit to what we were talking about before.
You're sort of investing in the future.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's what the free thing is about. And so it's like, it's funny because like when you're working with somebody and you're on equal ground, like you're both starting out, then the free thing can kind of make sense. But if you have a director or somebody who's done a few films and it's just like, you can see that someone's getting it taken advantage of, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah, they have the money to pay you, but they're not for some reason.
Right.
Yeah, that's not a good thing. So okay, I know I've said this before, but when I was young, I that was my dream, was to become a comic book artist. You know, I grew up on Marvel Comics, and John Buscema's, you know, is my favorite.
Sure.
And so then I, you know, at a certain point in school, I discovered film. That was when video cameras were becoming popular, and I started making films. And then I eventually discovered storyboards, and then I discovered how much you can make, you know, drawing storyboards. And that was the convincing factor for me. It was like, you know, unless I put the time in myself to do my own comic, I wasn't going to be, you know, hired by someone to draw a comic book, because I knew that the money wasn't going to be enough to do it.
Right.
And did that ever, like when I know you said you kind of came into storyboarding late from comics, so we're coming at it from different directions. Did that ever enter your mind? Like, did you look at it like, hey, this is a way I can make some good money doing it, you know, doing storyboards? Or was it just kind of like, I'm going to make quick cash here, but just so I could get back to doing my comic book work?
I'd say both those statements can be true, and they were true for me, because what I had was a lot of my own projects that I wanted to do, and there was a come to Jesus moment at some point where I realized I'm not going to get picked up by Marvel or DC because my style isn't, you know, the flavor of the month or even close to it. And I just didn't have the connections. That's also a major factor. But what I realized is I love storytelling. You know, visual storytelling has always been something that's been important to me, and I realized it didn't matter what it was. You know, the pre-production aspect of storyboards was great because I seem to, I don't know, people seem to like my work on one hand because it had a lot of energy, and on the other hand, I could do it fast because I had done comics and where you had to do a page or two a day. So they were like, "Whoa, you're fast," and it's like, really? I feel like I'm just average. You know, I'm just moving at my pace. And that was kind of cool because I felt like, hey, this is kind of an easy gig. Don't tell anybody.
Exactly.
But at the same time, I was just really stoked because I'm like, hey, this pays like real money. Let's keep doing this too. But I didn't seek it out. Like I didn't like try to get more of it, which I probably should have. It's just, you know, up here, it's kind of in limited supply.
Sure. Yeah, so I can understand that.
When it came, and I got most of my referrals from like one other storyboard artist who, you know, was just this amazing dude who didn't even know me. I didn't meet him until years later at a comic book convention.
No kidding. Oh.
Yeah. And if
that was nice of him.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because he was like this older dude. He was a bodybuilder at some point. And I was just like, damn, dude. I'm like, you know, because he was like, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years older than me. And I'm like, wow, he's in really good shape. I'm like, wow, what's your secret? You know, like, how do you keep going? But yeah, we've sort of, you know, been at different shows together. We did a thing at the Pacific Science Center, and he was showing his storyboards and I was showing how to make comics, and you know, it was great to really chat with him, and he wanted to be a comic book artist as well at one point.
Cool.
So that's kind of neat. You know, you get guys like Ian McCagg, who wanted to do comics, and he ended up doing
Yeah.
concept art, but he
Yeah.
just realized it takes too long to do comics and you don't get paid much.
Right.
So
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
love really drives people, you know.
It must be. I think, unfortunately, I think the world is missing out on a lot of really good comic book artwork from these
Yeah.
artists who decide not to go into the field because they know they're not going to be able to make a living.
Right.
I read something on this similar discussion was going on in one of the forums in Reddit, and people were saying usually comic book artists, they have a spouse who makes the money so that they can afford to do what they love, essentially. And it would be tough otherwise if they were trying to be the breadwinner. It'd be really, it'd be a tough gig to do. Again,
Right.
there are all these exceptions. If you're like a top artist,
Right.
you're going to make a lot of money and do fairly well. But I'm
Right.
just talking about like the average salary for a comic book artist, and the amount of time that they work. It's just incredible. I mean, there's,
Yeah.
I always think storyboard deadlines are hard to meet, but gosh, I mean, to try and do however many, like 2 pages a day or whatever it is,
Yeah.
that's
Which
a
is,
lot.
yeah, which is like, it roughly 12 panels of storyboard work, but they're finishes,
They're really detailed. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
it's also you're designing a page, so that adds another
Yeah,
layer of
yeah.
complexity. And
there's usually more to it. Like there are usually more characters, more
Yeah.
backgrounds involved, which will make the drawing
yeah,
take time. Like you have to plan it out. Like you can, storyboards, you get away with like going on your first impression essentially.
right.
You really don't have time. Like I don't have that much time usually to try out 5 different compositions before I settle on one. I just kind of, well, I guess once you've been doing it for a while, you kind of know.
Right.
So it helps. Like you don't have to draw out a bunch of different things before you settle on the one. You just kind of go with the first one, and then obviously if it's not right, the director will tell you.
Right.
You revise it, but it's you're not, you can't take the time up front to do that. You have to get the first pass in to the director,
Right.
and then allow them to come back with their notes, and that gives you more time then to refine and go back and correct things that were wrong possibly, but you didn't have time to correct because you had to get everything in.
Yeah.
That's one thing, I guess. Maybe for storyboard artists who are just getting started, who don't know what it's like. At least I'm talking from my point of view. It's probably not how everyone works, but I feel like every single day, and sometimes even in the middle of the day, I have a deadline. If it's a project that lasts 3 or 4 days, it's my responsibility to get in a certain amount of work done for the director so he has time to look over it and then provide me with revision notes and so on and so forth. You don't just have, like, say you have 50 panels to do in the project. You can't just turn in 10 at the end of the first day,
right,
and think you're going to make the deadline. I try and get at least halfway, if not more, because I like to pad my time so I have some time at the end to do the revisions and so forth. But I think it's something that people don't realize, is that like you're constantly feeling like you're on a deadline every day that you work. It's not like, and although I think if you're on a live action film, it could be a little different. You have a little bit more time. You might have a week to turn in a scene. I'm talking from the commercial side, when you're doing a commercial 30-second spot, 60, or maybe doing 2 or 3 30-second spots. You got to get something in every single day so they have time to review it and then get back, give you back the notes.
Right.
So,
right. No, that's a good point. That's a good point. And
Yeah.
it's you don't get noted as much in comics, luckily, unless
Right.
you started off with a new editor on a new project and they don't know who you are as well, and so they want to kind of feel you out, and they don't to build that trust.
Has anyone ever asked you for roughs for like your layouts for comic book work? Okay.
Yeah, when I first started working on stuff with the Z2 Comics, the editor who I'd worked with before on a Tori Amos project wanted to see roughs for this Beethoven project. And
Oh, okay,
and
cool.
I think it was mostly for the writers, because I think these writers were new to this company and they hadn't done
Yeah,
Beethoven before. So to
right.
make them feel comfortable, and I was fine doing that. That's kind of my process, anyways. So,
Sure.
but they didn't really have any notes, so that was great. They
Hmm.
just let me do my thing, and
Yeah,
I would catch stuff, or I'd ask things, like, hey, can the Roman army do this or that?
yeah,
And they were like, yeah. So very receptive, very cordial, and when you get everybody on the same page, it builds that trust, and then you can go off and be creative and hand in a
true,
finished work.
true. Yep,
Yep.
yeah, yeah. I think what you said makes a lot of sense. When there are new writers on the project, sometimes that it's not like their hand has to be held, but
Mm,
I think it makes them feel better seeing something, even
yeah.
if they don't have anything to say about it. Like they don't have feedback. It's just like,
That
okay, it's coming together. Like this is going to be okay, sort of thing.
right. And I
Yeah.
think the hard part is there are people who believe they have to give you feedback, and so they'll give you dumb
Oh,
feedback, and that's the
oh gosh,
worst.
that happens all the time.
You know
That's
what I'm
the
saying?
worst. Yeah.
It's
Oh
like,
God, it happens all the well, just to make it feel like they're contributing
yeah,
somehow.
I'm creative too, or B, I was hired to give notes. I'm going to give
Yeah,
notes.
yeah, regardless of whether it's good or not. Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's already perfect.
Right.
You're going to get some kind of constructive feedback from it, or
They
not
start
even
using,
constructive. Not
yeah,
constructive. I mean,
destructive.
yeah, destructive feedback.
Oh man. So when you work with directors, how often
Hmm.
is it repeat business?
Oh, these
Or,
days it's been a lot. It's been a lot of repeat business.
oh,
Yeah,
good. That's great.
yeah, yeah, and that's something that's important. I think we might have discussed this before, but for those who haven't seen it, it is really important, especially the very first time you work with someone, is to kind of go all out and really try to impress them, even
Mm,
if you have to work, an hour or overtime or whatever it is to get something done, and then also just being easy to work with.
mm,
That is huge because that's what people are looking for. They want someone who's easy to work with, who doesn't add. They're stressed enough as it is. They've got a deadline. They've got especially directors. They're pulled in a
yeah.
thousand different directions.
Oh yeah.
They don't need extra stress with a storyboard artist who's not either turning their work in on time or giving them crap or responding snide remarks or whatever
Yeah.
it is.
You got to be on point,
Um,
really.
you have to be on point. Yeah, you have to be on point. And even if they have you redraw a frame 3 or 4 times, it's like you can't complain about it. But again, I'm stressing especially the first time you work with this person because they'll never call you back. Then
Right.
they just won't. If they have a bad experience with you the first time, you're off the list, out of their mind. They're
Yeah.
they're not going to think of you again.
And
It's
vice
when
versa
you
too.
yeah, oh, no, absolutely. Yeah. No, when you, yeah, I think when you have that special job, like when everything goes really well and stress free, then you're definitely, implanted in their memory for the next job that comes around because everything went so smoothly on the last job. And especially if the job ended up turning out well, like for me,
Mm,
say, if the commercial really turned it out like a banger commercial,
yeah. Yeah.
and the director and everyone's like really happy with it,
Yeah.
why screw things up and change for the sake of changing? You want to keep the same team together. So
Certainly.
that's how you maintain your relationships and keep getting business,
Yeah.
again, because repeat business is probably going to be, like, I would say a good 80.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say 80% of your
Yeah.
business in the
I
long
would
run.
agree with that. That's a really fair
Yeah,
assessment. Um,
yeah.
yeah, it's interesting. You do one good job, and that could be your main thing for the next several years if it's a
Absolutely.
commercial
Yeah.
director. So that's
Hmm.
that's huge. Another thing, what I've done in the past, and I just do it because I don't know. I like to think I'm a nice person, despite
Yeah.
what you've said and what you've written on bathroom walls. I'd like to check in with people. I like to say, "Hey, man, how's it going?" I'm like,
Sure. Just checking in.
yeah, like,
Yeah.
"Hey, how did that last spot turn out? Do you happen to have
Yeah.
a reel or a YouTube thing of that? Because I'd
Right.
love to see it."
Right.
And
Yeah.
you're kind of asking for something that they probably already have, and then
hmm
but it also says in their head like, "Oh, hey, I got another project coming up. I might
Exactly.
he's
Yeah.
top of mind." So it sort of
Exactly.
stokes those embers a little bit.
hmm hmm
Like I just got a project. I got some copies of a book I worked on called No Remorse. It's a Motorhead tribute anthology
Oh,
about
cool.
Lemmy Kilmister, the singer of Motorhead, who passed away some years ago.
Nice.
I think
Yeah.
back in 2019. But yeah,
Mhm.
I opened up the book and it's it was printed really well. It was the art direction was amazing, and so I contacted the editor who also art directed it and just told him, I said, "Hey, this turned out amazing." Like I'm being honest about it. It's just like I
Mhm.
like because I'm like, how often do editors or art directors get kudos from the people they work with?
True.
About
That's
their
true.
job.
Yeah.
It's just like,
Yeah.
"Hey, what can you get me?" Or
Mhm.
where's my paycheck? They always get the
Right.
bad side, but they don't necessarily get the accolades that they
Exactly.
probably
Yeah.
get.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Everyone feels better when they get noticed, like their work is being appreciated, essentially.
right, right,
Storyboard artists, it's hard because your work doesn't get seen by hardly anyone except for, well, definitely the director and the producer and then some members of the crew, but it's not like you're not in touch with those people. Once you send off your work, if the director doesn't respond and say these are great, you're not really going to get any comments from anyone. No one's going to usually
true.
take the time. Maybe I've had producers reach out and
Mm.
just let me know how happy the director was with my work, and that always makes me feel good.
Oh,
But
that's nice.
yeah, but as a storyboard artist, your work is not meant to be published. It's not comic book art, and
No,
that's
no.
probably the one thing I guess that you know I not I don't know what the word is. Not I don't regret it, but it would be nice, I guess, to have the work published somewhere so that more people. I mean, I could. I'm just terrible about posting my stuff on social media. Just
Mm,
I don't know.
well, when you're
And even if I do, it's like it's not. I don't know. I don't have a huge following because I don't post that often, so not that
right.
many people are going to see it anyway. So
Well,
um,
that goes
yeah,
hand in glove, though, right? If you post it
yeah,
more, you might get more followers, and
true.
vice
Yeah,
versa.
yeah, true, true. I
So
know. I have to.
it's just about priorities,
Okay.
man. I mean, it's
I, I
you, you,
I
you
know
you're,
that's something I'm ready to move on, and it's hard for me to like
yeah.
look back. I don't know.
You're living the
It's
life, man. You're out there.
living
You know,
a life
yeah,
in
living La Vida
Italia.
Loca in
Yeah.
Italia.
Well, that would be Spain. Come on now. It's the sweet life, la dolce vita.
Don't be.
The dolce vita. So, anyone out there who's watching, I don't think we have that many people watching, unfortunately, right now at this time. But if you guys have any questions for us, if you want us to address anything, either what we've been talking about or
Mm,
something new, if you want to change the subject, we're here to do that as well. So feel free to drop a comment and we'll do our best to respond. And as Shane always says, even if we
yeah.
don't know the answer, we'll do our best to fake it. So.
Yay, me, Chet Faker. Yeah, man. What's interesting?
Yeah.
I've basically recorded all the videos, and for the next several months that
Mm,
I'm going to be posting it.
that's amazing. I don't know how
Um,
you do it.
yeah. Well, I just had to put my
I'm
mind to
I'm
it because
one at
it's
a
like
time. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit easier because it's like a project by project thing. But
hmm
yesterday I recorded the big daddy of them all, which was the inking with uncommon tools.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, yeah. And people chose the Bronson.
The
Yeah,
Bronson, yeah. So
yeah.
I'll send you a little snippet of the art
Okay. Okay.
after the
Yeah.
show. I was surprised. for a dried out stick, it turned out okay. So
That's what she said.
Oh, that's the name of my sex tape. No, we're going there.
So,
why am I just getting my own joke? What an idiot! So stupid. Sorry.
So did you ink something that you drew, or did you ink someone else's work?
Well, I made a video out of the video. Like I took, okay, this is gonna go bad, but I'm just gonna put it out there. So I drew a man thing.
Okay.
The monster, the creature.
Actual monster, yes. It's called Man Thing.
Man Thing.
Yes. For people that don't know that there's actually a creature that exists called Man Thing. He's not talking about what you might think he's talking about.
He's not talking about what you're thinking.
No.
So I drew a thumbnail of Man Thing.
Yeah.
And then I blew that up, and that's what I ended up inking. I just inked from the thumbnail.
Cool.
So there wasn't a lot of structure that I had to follow.
Yeah.
But I also, it gave me an opportunity to do a lot of texture, and I think using the right tool for that job, working with a dried out stick was probably the best choice.
I can't wait to see it. Now you carved a little bit, right? Like you created what do they call that? The little groove. There's a name for it. Isn't like an inking pen where it splays apart.
Oh yeah, now I'm at a loss for words. I can't remember what it's called. Well, it's an inking, like a nib. I basically created a nib using this stick. So there's some woodworking involved. So this project actually, you get to see a little bit of my, well, not really my woodworking shop, but I do start off in my garage doing some alterations to the tools. So yeah, it's kind of neat. And I'm surprised how well it worked out.
Did you use different parts of the stick for different things, like different textures then? Okay. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I think
go ahead. I was just going to ask if you think you'll ever use it again now that it turned out well.
There's not much left of the stick. You want to go there?
Okay.
She said.
Let me ask you this: Did it retain ink well, or did you have to continually keep dipping it a lot more than you normally would with the regular nib? Okay.
Yeah, you had to. Yeah. There was a couple things I did. I won't spoil it, and
sure. Yeah.
But I did some stuff to the sticks to. God, this is not sounding good. To harden them.
Yeah. Okay. Like a lacquer or something like that, or
no? It's something else. It's a Japanese term.
Okay. Oh no.
I can't. Oh man, I can't tell you any of this.
I know we need to change subjects.
Okay. How about them Mets?
How about them Mets? Hey. I jumped. I had my hand between two pillows. Those aren't two pillows.
Planes, trains, and automobiles.
Boy, yes, very good.
But yeah, I think the takeaway from this is that if you want to get creative, I think trying out different inking implements and thinking beyond just what is out there.
Yeah.
You really get some cool stuff happening. And I was deeply impressed with the results. Like I got more texture and more versatility out of the sticks than I would have imagined. And I think that was really eye-opening
That's awesome.
Anything. So
very cool.
In the future, if I end up doing some more of those, I might try a different tool. I might just try making something up.
Right. Yeah, I think when people limit themselves to certain things, that they're not used to using.
Yes.
I think that really sparks creativity.
Yeah.
It's like, what is it? The mother is, or what is it? This necessity is the mother of invention, or something like that.
Necessity is the mother of invention.
Mother of invention. Yeah. So just like if someone didn't have all these fancy pen nibs or something, they would have to work with whatever they have, and it produces something totally different and unique looking that no one else is doing, because everyone else is using the same tool.
Right.
So that's very cool. I can't wait to see it.
A famous skateboarder named Rodney Mullins, who grew up in Florida, and because they didn't have any hills or anything, he came up with his own style of skateboarding that no one else did for the longest time.
Oh, wow.
So his street style of skating was unique only to him. So when he would do street competitions, it was it was like, well, okay, you obviously win because you don't need parking lots or parking, what do you call it? Picnic tables or park benches. You can do things on flat ground that nobody has been able to do. But since, then, people have learned how to do his tricks, but he's like the godfather of flat earth skating.
That's cool. That's very cool. Yeah, it's a good example. Yeah.
I think, it's you end up becoming so unique that your voice is delivered through your own microphone, and that becomes what keeps you getting more and more work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So
I was just gonna say,
everyone's a rock star. So
now, personally, I've always been attracted to work that is more, I think this, or we've talked about this before, that's more messy and kind of like, painting. I like paintings that aren't really refined. I mean, inking styles, everything. I just like things like if I go to a museum and I see something that's really messy, and I'm like, how did they do that? Like, what tools did they use to achieve that? Because a lot of people use all different kinds of things. Like Gabriel Hardman, his style of inking is pretty cool. I mean, it's not like he's not the only one doing it,
right?
But it's a good example, I think, where he uses like whatever is lying around. Essentially, he just looks like, oh, there's a sponge, or oh, there's a toothbrush, there's whatever, just to get that gritty looking effect. And I think there's something to be said for that. Is like using not even tools, but instruments or whatever it is. That they aren't intended for that purpose. They're meant actually to do something else. But you're taking it and, making it, shaping it to your work. And it creates a unique look then. Like, again, because everyone else is using the same tools pretty much. So a lot of these things can start to look the same. But then when you see someone doing something, with other tools, it becomes really unique. It stands out from the rest of the crowd.
True.
Pretty cool.
And in cases where people are actually solid artists to begin with, I think that helps immensely, because if you lean on the tricks, then it looks like you're doing art tricks and you're not really, you're just hiding behind it.
Yeah.
I think that's the distinction that should be made.
Great thought there, because if you don't have the art background, then it starts looking just like a jumbled mess. As opposed to like something that is well constructed with the use of these tools. Because I've seen way too much of that before. People calling themselves artists and doing things that are just like, it's just a mess. And I'm not like Pollock, obviously. Like, a lot of people point to Pollock and they're like, they don't understand, what he did. But he did have a method to his madness. There's a lot worse stuff that I've seen in modern art museums that I wonder how the heck it got in there. It's like, how long did this really take to do? How much thought was actually put into this before the person just went and there are a lot of celebrities, I think, that call themselves artists who do that kind of work.
It's rare that a celebrity is equal in talent to the craft of making art as they are at acting.
Right.
None come to mind. Let's put it that way. Even though I think, and that's being too harsh, but I know Gene Hackman used to paint. I think
I didn't know that.
he was a pretty serious artist
Mhm.
in terms of he did a lot of painting. So I don't know. I haven't seen his work, so maybe he was an exception.
Yeah.
James Cagney used to be a painter.
Oh.
He painted with one of my painting heroes, Sergei Bongart. They used to
Yep.
hang out. They were good friends. So yeah, there is something to be said about crossing the streams and doing different skills. But
Sure.
if you are serious about it, you will hopefully study it.
Right.
To bring
Exactly.
more to the table.
Yeah. Yeah. You won't just like start calling yourself a painter after you've picked up the brushes or whatever for the first time.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way.
Well, it's an interesting thing because I'm relaxing it a little bit for myself, not just for myself, but like my wife is actually doing a lot more art these days, and she's seriously studying it and putting in a lot of work. But because of her mature mindset, she's doing the hard work. She's doing the stuff. She's not trying to take shortcuts. And I think that's what's really, really cool to see is that, okay, here's somebody who kind of understands that both of her parents were artists. She's married to me and I can't help that. But she's also, I'd still say that she's pursuing it in a different way than maybe I'm pursuing it or other people are pursuing it. Some people pursue it out of therapy. Some people pursue it out of they want a sense of purpose in life. And I think sure, you can call yourself an artist, but it's when you start maybe crossing that threshold of, okay, I'm going to try and get a gallery show. It's like then you're going to be taking on the next level. You're going to be having to say, okay, I'm ready for criticism. And then that's when things can change.
That's true. Yeah.
And you just have to be ready. That's a whole different mindset that I don't think a lot of people are ready for.
That's true.
How do you handle criticism?
If it's constructive, I think I handle it very well. I didn't always used to, but I grew up, I think I've told you this story before. My mom gave me a lot of constructive criticism whenever I would draw. And I think that helped me become used to it. Even though I didn't like it at the time, I didn't think she was always right, or I just thought she was being mean. But and she never said it in a mean manner at all. It was just like she would say, like, well, she'll take a look at my drawings. Don't you think his arm might be a little long for proportion? She would say it in that way, so it was very nice. But it would just like, and then I'd go back and change it. And so I was used to that. It was good training for me, I guess, to accept constructive criticism. And these days, I mean, I love it. It's I think it's hard to work without it. That's why I'm always sending stuff to you to look at, because I know, I trust your eye, and I want to hear your feedback. And I think we have a relationship where we know that it's not going to affect our friendship if we say something constructive about each other's artwork. I'm doing it, for you, and you're doing it for me to help each other. To get better. And a lot of times, like especially if you're too close to something, you can't see it yourself. And then someone points it out, all of a sudden it's like, it becomes like there's a spotlight on it. Now you can't unsee it.
Exactly.
you're like, how did I not see this in the first place? So
that's the frustrating part. You're like, oh, you think you've gotten too far in your career. You're like, I should see this.
How did I let that slip by? Yeah, exactly. And I think it happens to everyone, though. And that's why, it always helps to like get away from your drawing board or your monitor, whatever, your Cintiq, and go for a walk or whatever, and come back with a fresh set of eyes. Because that always helps me a lot too. And I look at it and I'm like, whoa, what was I thinking? How did I not see that? So
one practice I've tried is emailing the image to myself, because then I see it in a different context. And boy, does that kick me in the butt.
That's a good idea.
If I would have sent that to the client, oh boy. I would have
Yeah.
seen the mistake
Yeah.
immediately, and then you're like, oh
Yeah.
no, not that one. This is the real one.
Yeah.
The worst thing. It's
Right.
the
Right.
worst thing.
No, I mean, getting back to your original question, I do think I handle it well if it's constructive,
Good.
like I said.
Yeah.
But if it's, and we talked about this before, if it's like someone just wanting to like change something
Right.
for the sake of changing it like 1,000 times, then that I start to get a little ticked off about that. Even though I'm getting paid, and I probably shouldn't. It's just the what do you like the nature of the what they're doing, I guess, to me is like tormenting me by constantly like changing something when it was perfectly fine, or at least close enough. And that's the thing about storyboards that always gets me, is that you have someone needle you to death, and I always think like, are they going to be presenting these storyboards instead of the commercial? Storyboards aren't meant to be like a final presentation. They're meant to get the idea across. And so unless it's like a very blatant error, like the person or the whatever, the vehicle is on the wrong side of the frame or whatever,
like a real mistake.
Yeah, but if it's just like a slight like I get noodled all the time for like expressions, like and more surprised or whatever, he's being more subtle about it. I'm like, okay, or the person doesn't look such and such enough, I'm like who's gonna like, I don't know. It's like, are you publishing these in a book or everyone's going to see them?
Like Lens, why are you drawing another barbarian? This is a salad commercial.
Okay. In that case, culpa me. Yeah, it's my fault.
Actually, I do have another question. So we're at the 10-15 minute mark, and I didn't know if you had to change out your battery, but if you do, as we close on this, did you want to share some photos of the surrounding area before?
Yeah, I forgot to do that before. Do you mind if I take over here real quickly?
Yeah, let me.
Okay, we'll come back to it. I don't know if you have to stop or if I can just do it or not, but
yeah, I don't know. How about,
let me see what happens.
Yeah, I can just check out here. I'll stop screen.
Okay.
There we go. And you're back.
Okay. Google's okay.
I didn't know if you already switched out your battery or not.
Entire screen. Let's see here if I can do this. Can you see this now or no? The image
I just see your fat head.
Oh. Well, that's not good. No one wants to see that.
Wait, I'm sorry. Let me be more constructive about that. Your head is disproportionate to the rest of your body. I think you need to rework your shoulders.
Okay. How about now?
Whoa.
Can you see that?
That's gorgeous.
Okay. So can you see my pointer? Yeah. Can you see my pointer? Okay. So this little place, it's actually, it's not as little as it looks, but this is where our house is. And we share it with another couple. It's an Italian couple who like couldn't be nicer neighbors. I was telling Shane earlier, we just went on a 4-day trip with them. It was so much fun. They're up for everything. I get to practice my Italian speaking with them. It's fantastic.
Wow.
So I think this was taken on one of my runs. I usually, when I go running, I always take my phone with me or bicycling as well.
Nice.
So I'll flip through a couple of these.
This
is obviously, you could see the landscape in the background, and then down below, it doesn't look like this is downhill, but it is in the background here.
Oh, that's Gravy.
That's the town of Gravy. Yeah, not Gravy. Gravy.
Oh, I was gonna say past the Gravy.
Yeah, past the Gravy. This is inside the village.
Oh,
so
cool.
It's shaped like a circle, as you could kind of see from the other pictures, and that's my wife, Laurie, is there.
That's a great shot of her.
Yeah, so far away. Yeah, I know. Well, I don't want to I don't make it too public,
No.
This was like, after a really beautiful sunset.
So who maintains those vineyards, or are those your vineyards?
No, they're not ours. I wish. Actually, I'm not sure who owns these. These are really close to the village, as you can see. But the whole village is surrounded by vineyards because we're in the Chianti region, and so
Wow.
they're the most famous, I guess, vineyard in the area is actually named after the town. It's called Montefioralle Winery,
Okay.
and so I don't know if I have a picture of
Mm,
theirs, but this is actually a home restaurant. This is the entrance to a home restaurant, and it's
amazing.
fantastic. And the
Oh my.
views are unbelievable from there. As you're sitting and dining, it's
Oh,
fantastic.
why are
This
you
is
not
this.
painting every day?
I know I should be. It's terrible, isn't it?
You're an
If
awful
I were here
person.
for like three to 6 months, I would be.
Oh my God.
This is the most photographed place corner of the village,
Okay.
especially when you get the right light coming in. It's just absolutely beautiful, and
Amazing.
everything is you can see it's like so well taken care of, and
Yeah,
manicure. Like everyone that really has a sense of pride. They're
that's great.
sweeping, they're watering their plants and flowers and everything. So
Oh
so this is
wow.
a day, and then that's at night.
Oh,
Same
that's so
place,
cool.
just different time.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
so cool. Oh,
And then
that's neat, man.
this is from afar again, of course. So these
Wow.
are all the. It's we're kind of surrounded. Well, I mean, Montefiore is up on a hill itself, but then we're also surrounded by other hills. This area down below is like a valley, and
Right.
then where I'm standing is even up higher on the hill.
Okay.
And then this is a drone shot of it, so you
Whoa,
can you can see the
dude.
shape of the village. It's very circular, like the
That's
main
so
road.
cool. Only a
Yeah,
hundred people live there or thereabout.
yeah. Uh-huh. Yep.
That's
Yeah. And
so cool.
there are several. There are probably five Airbnbs now in the village, at
Mhm.
least. So that's kind of replaced some of the people that used to live here, and that's just further out. You could see more of the area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So,
Oh,
it,
sorry.
it, no, it's okay.
Mhm.
So just to kind of get a sense of where we're at, like, is this
Yeah.
considered a small village, and then you're closest to
Yes.
what? What's the next biggest place that we would know?
Well, Florence is 45 minutes away, and
Okay.
Siena is a little over an hour, maybe like an hour and 10 minutes away. It's to the south of us. So
Yeah.
those are the two biggest cities, of course, that people actually recognize by name. But then, so anyone who's been in Italy would also know. Let me stop sharing here. How do you stop presenting this?
Just there's a
Stop. Oh, there we go. Okay,
just
got
like
it.
that. Yeah.
Um, but anyone who's been to Italy and Tuscany in particular probably is aware. There's the hillsides are just dotted with medieval towns.
Nice.
Some of the more popular ones are San Gimignano, which
Mm.
is known for I think it has at least 7 towers still remaining. I think at one point it had more than 20.
Oh my.
Um, it's absolutely beautiful. It's kind of overrun with tourists in the touristy seasons like the summer.
Yeah.
That's why we always come in the shoulder seasons of spring and autumn because there are
Yeah.
a lot less tourists here. So makes it much because even our
Mm.
village is like swarmed with tourists coming through, walking through because Montefiore was listed as one of the most beautiful villages in all of Italy. So
Damn.
they do it every year, like, and it's been like a couple times. So people find out about it, and then they
Yeah.
want to come up and see it. So and then they can't actually have any buses that come up here because the road's too narrow. So they have like shuttles or
Thankfully.
vans that come up. Yeah, exactly. It'd be worse because it's already hard enough to find parking here.
Yeah.
Um,
I can't
but
imagine.
anyway, so there's San Gimignano, there's Volterra, which is one of our favorites.
Mm.
Um, what else is? I'm trying to think of some of the other cute little villages that people might know. There are a lot that people won't know if I name them. So,
Sure, of course. I do have one
um,
question about
yeah,
because these are small towns and
yeah,
villages. Yeah, I would think it would be hard pressed to find like franchises that have sort of infiltrated. So a lot of this is like mom and pop stuff, like stores
yeah.
and
Especially where we are, it's like Greve is much smaller than like Siena or Florence, of course. But
okay,
if you go into Florence or Siena, even you'll see McDonald's.
Right.
I don't think we've seen KFC. I'm trying to remember what else we've. I know it's terrible, but dude, they do at McDonald's, and apparently though the quality of food is much better though than we get in the United States, because I don't think the Italians would put up with it, like the quality of the meat and just the sandwiches. So I wouldn't mind going in one time just to see what it's like, you know. Like I avoid it like the plague in the United States, but I probably have more curiosity here to try it out.
Why would we even be having this discussion? This is like so anti-Italian. I can't believe we're.
Well, we have Starbucks now here too, and I think there are three in Florence, 2 or 3 in Florence, and then like Milan and.
That would be tough. That would be tough to compete with. Like I would experiment with that. It's like, okay, can you compare it to an Italian espresso? Come on, like it's night and day.
I mean, because they're called bars here. Like we would call them cafes in the United States.
Yeah.
But they're considered bars. It's not like a bar that we like not a nightclub or anything like that. They serve pastries and they serve coffee and. Right. And that sort of thing, Cantucci and biscotti and all that stuff. But they're on every corner pretty much. Like you can't walk 10 yards without coming across a bar. So for Starbucks to come in is like a big deal, because they're and their prices are way higher. Starbucks are than like the mom and pop shops, of course. Yeah. But people go there because it's like a touristy thing to do. Like and I think you can get stuff in Starbucks that you can't really get here. I'm sorry, not here, but in the smaller bars.
Sure.
So it's funny, like if this is advice for anyone who comes here, if you ask for a latte, that doesn't exist. Latte means milk in Italian. It's not a type of drink. It's milk. So if you ask for a latte, you're going to get a glass of milk. Right. So they don't really make lattes here. Like they make cafe americano, which is essentially it's like an espresso with more water. So
and it's squeezed through a dirty sock.
Not here, it's not.
Right. I'm sorry. I was thinking Brooklyn. What? Hello. Right. It's a pour over of a gym sock. Sorry. I'm getting out of hand.
No, I know. I'm going to reel you back in. Come with me, Shane. Come with me.
Yeah, please.
But what else? Cafe Americano. Okay, so the typical. They have probably like 8 to 10 different types of coffee drinks, but they don't really have like a full size latte, and it's also very uncommon to get anything to go. You usually stay at the bar and drink it, so they don't have to go cups. Most of them. So I think some are starting to now, but you don't see people walking around town carrying coffee cups or anything like that. Yeah.
Slow it down, folks. That's why
it's inexpensive compared to, especially California, where I come from. Like Laura, my wife and I, we get, and we normally, it's funny, we normally don't even eat breakfast in the United States. We just do like the intermittent fasting. But every time we come here, we indulge and we walk down the Greve, and we get, we each get a cappuccino, and then we get some kind of pastry. They call them pasta here, but so like a cornetto is like either a brioche or a croissant.
Sure.
And then, but they also have certain ones that are filled with crema, like pistachio or vanilla or different flavors. And then they have like pastries that have, apples or pineapples or straw. I mean, it's amazing.
Fruit and that sort of thing. Yeah. That's amazing.
But the 2 cappuccino, we say 2 cappuccinos in English, but it's 2 cappuccini. The I at the end makes it plural. So we have 2 cappuccini and then 2 cornetti, the cornettos, and that's usually under $5 or €5. So whereas in the United States, each cappuccino would probably be at least like $4.50 or $5. Yeah.
Right, with tax.
So you're looking at like $20, in the United States, where it's like under $5 here. So and people, that's why people go. Like just an espresso itself, which is they call it a cafe. Like so, if you order a cafe, that means espresso, and that's usually €1. It's between €1 to €1.30 here.
Amazing.
So it's very, and people usually come in and they get their shot and they take their shot and then they go. But it's a very social thing to do. It's like everyone, in the mornings the bars are full because people are getting ready before they go to work to do that. So it's a really cool place. I mean, it's and we know the baristas and everything now. So we walk in and ciao, man.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. Well, so when do you get back?
I get back on the 25th.
25th.
So next Friday. Yeah, it's not this Friday, but the next Friday. So we're here another week and a half.
Nice. Day after our anniversary. Perfect.
Oh, when's your anniversary? Or what year is your anniversary? I should say.
Let's see. It'll be 19 years.
19. Wow.
Yeah, married 19, but together for 24. So
exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, it'll be fun.
Cool. Oh, happy anniversary in advance. If I forget to wish you guys a happy anniversary. And
safe travels back home.
Thank you. I appreciate it. All right. Well, I guess we're wrapping things up. Go ahead.
Do we want to direct anybody to our Substack?
Oh yeah. Let's see here. I should have had the one banner going, but of course I've been lazy.
Well, our Substack is beyondtheprocess.art if you want to
there you go.
Find out more articles about what we do and the information we'd like to share. And we have more videos coming up in the weeks to come, more inking videos. I'm got 3 more videos for my color theory, principles of color theory, and that will wrap that up. And by then you should be amazing painters. If not, Lance has a bunch of storyboard videos coming up as well. So
I still have some more shots. More shots like that. I need to teach everyone how to storyboard them. So definitely stay tuned. Got a lot of good content coming up for you guys. And thank you very much for tuning in today. Those who did, appreciate it.
Yeah, and I don't have anything else more to say other than thanks for watching.
Exactly. We'll see you guys next time. Arrivederci from Italy. There you go.
Arrivederci. It worked.
Arrivederci.
Arrivederci. I got to get the hand in there too, right?
Arrivederci.
Arrivederci.
This means what the hell are you saying?
Oh, it does it? Okay.
Yeah.
What about the one under the chin? You don't want to do that?
This. Oh no, that's our equivalent of a middle finger.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Well,
So, but if you're going like this, that means like what? Cosa stai dicendo? What do you say?
Perfect.
Okay. On that note.
All right.
We'll see everyone next time.
All right. Take care, guys.
Bye bye.